How many games would you say you play where after you finish that game you thought to yourself, this is one of the best games that was ever created? I can't tell you that that happens often enough for me, but what I can tell you is that Witcher 3 is one of those games. As usual, we'll talk about the visuals first. There is no mixed bag in The Witcher 3. This is simply one of the best looking and one of the most impressive games on a technical level in existence, period. You'd either have to be blind or in some extreme loser denial to name me more than a few games that look this damn good. I can count them on one hand. CD Projekt Red have absolutely nailed what you would want a fantasy RPG to look like. Everything about this game is breathtaking. I think every time that I've played The Witcher 3, I still can't believe that it's possible that a game can look this good. The skies, man, the skies, and you guys know how I feel about a really good skybox in a game, and day or night, The Witcher 3 will blow you away in every possible way. This game is a technical achievement, and although the swampy areas of Velen are probably some of my favorite in the game, it wasn't until I reached Skellige where I truly started to appreciate the visuals and overall presentation for this game. Since I am playing the PC version of the game, there are of course options that the consoles don't afford you. Many of these things, coupled with the added horsepower of PC, just brings The Witcher 3 to a completely different level. Just to give you an idea, as just an example, if a game like The Witcher 3 was exclusive to the PC, this is probably one of those games, knowing everything that I know now about completing the game and the experience that is and how well optimized this game is, this is probably one of those games that I would recommend someone, yes, you should go and build a really nice gaming PC just to play this game. Also, try to keep in mind that I did play this game in late 2016 after it received a number of patches. I can only review the game as it is when I played it, right? So a lot of the visual problems and bugs, glitches, things like that were there at launch have likely been ironed out. Even the little touches like improvements to the UI or the dirt and the dust that's kicked up by yourself or as you ride with Roach, just the attention to detail is greatly appreciated, and something again that, a lot of developers just don't really care for or put last when it comes to priorities. I can actually remember my very first experience with the Elder Scrolls Oblivion and just all of the feelings, all of the emotions, the hype that I had for that game, especially getting out of your cell and getting out there in the open world and seeing that for the first time. It was like no other. It was like no other at the time, and I couldn't believe that something like that was possible in 2006. No other fantasy RPG up to this point has been able to capture me in the same way until The Witcher 3. I've heard people tell me that the gameplay in The Witcher 3 is good. I've heard people tell me that it's average. I've heard that it's above average. I've heard The Witcher 3 is amazing, but the combat sucks. I couldn't disagree more. In fact, after playing The Witcher 3, I thought it was very possible that those people and myself had played two completely different games. The combat in The Witcher 3 is one of the main reasons I continued playing. If the combat and the gameplay wasn't enjoyable for me, I probably would have stopped playing around the 5-hour mark. I would probably say, in my opinion, the gameplay in this game falls somewhere between everything that's good about games like Assassin's Creed, the Batman Arkham series, and a whole lot of other fantasy RPGs. Being able to loot bodies in a game is a pretty big thing for me, especially in an open world title. It's just one of my favorite things to do in a game like this. Like a lot of other games in the genre, a lot of the gear and other junk that you pick up along the way will eventually be sold. Some of the swords and armor you come across will be good for a time, but the world of Witcher can be pretty unforgiving. And unless you're pro, which I'm not, going into like a level 15 quest with a level 6 character and level 3 weapons and armor will result in your death. I think CD Projekt Red covered just about everything that an RPG fan could want in a game like this. There are different potions and decoctions that you can create, a large number of armors, weapons, and other items you can craft, and you'll need to find the right alchemist, armorer, blacksmith, innkeep in order to create some of these things effectively. All of this matters when you're preparing for a battle. You won't always need to prepare in some way, but you'll find things go a lot more smoothly when you look at an enemy and discover what type of attacks and potions they're weak against. You'll also have to be careful about how many potions and decoctions that you're taking as Geralt, because unless you've bothered to level your tolerance to those things, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble trying to spam those shits. Speaking of leveling, yes, as any well-made RPG should, The Witcher has a leveling system and a variety of different builds for you to configure any way you like. Me personally, I wanted a more attack-heavy build while using swords. I chose to make very few upgrades to my Witcher abilities like signs. I wanted Geralt to be a complete badass for the most part, and that's pretty much what I ended up with. Interestingly enough, you'll also have some romance options in The Witcher 3. I'm not entirely sure if you can, marry anyone during your playtime. Not that any developer ever really made that very fun to begin with. But the romance and sexual options are there if you should choose to involve yourself in some of these very, very lovely women of this world. And let me say, there are many. There are a lot of beautiful women in The Witcher 3. I can't name you 3. I can't point to 3 really ugly women in The Witcher 3. It seems somewhat unrealistic, but you know what? It's a fantasy RPG. I'll take it. I remember saving what I consider to be the most beautiful female elf in all of video games, thinking, I'm gonna do all sorts of bad things to this lady, but that unfortunately was not an option. Questing and knowing where your character and gear should be at for certain quests is fun and simple to understand. Some of the side activities like horse racing can be a lot of fun, though I am ashamed to say I have yet to play any Gwent. Don't kill me, I know it's supposed to be one of the better mini games, one of the better side games in any game ever, but I have yet to play this thing, and I don't know if I should yet be sorry for it. Maybe in the second playthrough I can get to that. When I play an open world game, especially an RPG, and one as well made as The Witcher 3, I like to take it all in. I want to try and experience at least half of what the game offers in the first playthrough, and I'd like to think with 170 hours of playtime, I've accomplished that with The Witcher 3. I can admit, as someone that loves The Witcher 3, and in particular loves the gameplay in The Witcher 3, that there's probably a few different things that would turn some people off. The amount of quests that can be thrown your way at one time, and having this feeling, this sense of, I need to do all of this right now. You don't want to focus too much on a lot of the side stuff and become bored and completely leave out the main story and get so bored or so sidetracked that you forget about the main story, and by the time you get to it, maybe you've already had your fill of the game. The real sense of immense scale with this open world and the several different locations that are all huge and different in their own right, that can be pretty overwhelming to those that don't play a lot of open world RPGs that often. The story centers around a number of different characters, but this is definitely Ciri and Geralt's story. Probably more Ciri than Geralt, though Geralt is still very much the star of the show and the character that you'll spend the most time with. There are a number of quests and characters that play a large role in how this game ends. Tackling things like the Bloody Baron quest to progress in the main story is some of the best storytelling I've ever experienced in a game. You'll face quests with evil spirits, helping old friends solve their problems, and even do some silly early game stuff like help an old lady find her pan. While beautiful at times, The Witcher 3 is full of happiness, hate, and despair. Even in some of the more silly or heartbreaking moments of The Witcher 3, everything is still beautifully written. Voice acting is some of the best I've heard in all of gaming, and possibly the best I've heard in any RPG ever. It really puts other games in the genre to shame in that respect. Admittedly, I am a Witcher fraud through and through. I didn't play the original Witcher, and I have about an hour or two in The Witcher 2. Characters like Dijkstra, Triss, Dandelion, Roach, and Yennefer were all part of Geralt's previous adventures, and they're also the highlight of this game. All beautifully voice acted and likable in their own way, there was never a dull moment when these characters were around. The dialogue options you're given during conversations with many of these individuals will determine the overall outcome of the game, as well as several side quests. I think the whole idea of being this person, being this Witcher that lives by this Witcher code, I think it actually grew on me, and I was so immersed in the experience at times that a lot of my dialogue choices ended with, "Give me more money." There were a few moments in The Witcher 3 when I thought it was over. There was actually one moment where I wanted it to be over because I was beginning to fear that it was going to drag on and drag on. I'm happy to report that it didn't drag on, and I was wrong about some of those moments where I thought it was over, and I'm glad. I'm glad I was wrong about that. I did have some tears for this game, most of them bittersweet, but I think there was one that was a great deal of sadness, not to the point of like weeping or sobbing, but I was really sad about one particular moment in this game that I won't spoil here. I grew attached to some of these characters. I think it says a lot about The Witcher 3 and is a true testament to just how well written the story and the characters are in this game when a developer can make me feel like I'm playing the first Witcher game and not one called The Witcher 3. I don't always mention sound in my reviews, but I think the effort that went into making The Witcher 3 sound incredible is worth the mention here, and it's one of those things where you can't always count on the majority actually giving a damn about sound in a review. It's simply euphoria to my ears. The music, and in particular the battle music and the music that plays as you're riding around in Skellige, just adds to the experience and helped immerse me more when coupled with great characters and graphics. And again, going back to that attention to detail that some of us love so much, just little things like riding around with Roach and how the sounds would change based on the terrain that you're on is just something that you need to appreciate, because a lot of developers won't put that effort into a game. When you're near a swamp slicing up drowners, it looks, feels, and sounds like you would imagine for a swamp. Hunting ice giants near a snowy mountain feels and sounds exactly how it should for a fantasy RPG. The Witcher 3 is one of those games you'll go and look at the Metacritic score for and say, this game is probably overrated. It's hyped to hell and back. I knew I was going to play a good game based on the reputation of the developer alone, but I didn't know I was about to experience one of the greatest games ever created. I feel this game has set the bar so high for gaming, and in particular the RPG genre as a whole, that a lot of developers just have their work cut out for them. It's the most awarded game of all time. Developers like Bethesda, BioWare, and even those that make JRPGs could really take a look at everything that The Witcher 3 does right, and it's a lot, because it's now the standard of which RPGs will be judged. With such an advanced engine in place that puts stuff like Gamebryo and Creation Engine to shame, there's really no excuse beyond this point. Developers have to step their RPG game up, and I'm not sure that that's going to happen before CD Projekt releases their next game. Believe the hype. Believe it all. It's every bit as good as anyone that enjoyed it said it was, and then some. It's about as perfect as you can get for a video game, outside of one minor issue that I found more funny than anything else. There is so much more I want to tell you guys about this game, so whether it's either, I forgot about some of those things, or there just isn't enough time in a review without making it 45 minutes to an hour or 2 hours, because I could definitely do that with a game like Witcher 3. It's just even things like the replay value are extremely high, as you can go back many times under a completely different build and make completely different dialogue choices that will affect the overall outcome of the game. It's incredible. This game is amazing. The Witcher 3 is the best RPG I've played since Fallout New Vegas, and easily a game I'd throw into my top 20 games of all time.
Talk? Talk? But you come. Or call you wham-a-wham like this?
Exactly. Why do you wham 'em?
Things in Walk Troll House. Trolls say outmans, but they wham-a-wham troll rocks. So troll wham too.